Welcome to the Sisterhood of Sweat. I'm here today with Gina Conley. Gina Conley is the founder of Mamaste Fit, a perinatal fitness training company located in Aberdeen, North Carolina. Mamaste Fit supports women throughout their pregnancy, birth, and beyond as one of the only training facilities exclusively serving pre and postnatal fitness training clients in the United States. Gina has her master's in exercise science and is the author of Training for Two, a book about how to use prenatal fitness to support a strong and pain free pregnancy as you prepare for birth. Gina is a birth doula who has supported over 200 in person births. She combines her experience as a fitness trainer and a birth professional to create comprehensive programs that support her clients from conception to birth and through the postpartum period. Gina is a military spouse, an Army veteran, and a mom of three with one baby on the way this fall. Well, I just had to say, I didn't realize she was in the military. That's where I started into fitness at Minot, North Dakota, on the bomber base that was there. And that's when Jane Fonda and Reebok tennis shoes and leotards and leg warmers were all the rage. So I really enjoyed delivering this today. It's something that I wish would have been in place when I was having my babies and teaching as the pregnant fitness instructor. More of kind of like the guinea pig back in the day when nobody really did that kind of thing. And it's just a full circle moment that my daughter, who I was the first one I taught class all the way through with, and it was to Jane Fonda that she ended up photographing Jane Fonda. She's a professional photographer in New York City. So many full circle moments today. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode with Gina. It was so informative for anybody considering exercise during pregnancy that has questions. I mean, it was just like so thorough. I think you'll really enjoy it. You could give it to a friend that maybe wants to know all the ins and outs of birth and pregnancy and exercise. Share it with your loved ones and your friends. Without further ado, let's dive into this episode with Gina Conley. I'm excited to welcome Gina Conley to the Sisterhood of Sweat today. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
I think the name of your brand is so cute because it goes kind of with what I do when I've taught hundreds of yoga classes since, oh my gosh, since for 27 years. I say namaste and your mamaste. How did you come up
Yes.
with that?
I actually saw it on a tank top when I was trying to figure out what my business name should be. And so namaste is the light in me sees the light in you. There's something in you that's the same in me. And so mamaste is the mom in me sees the mom in you because there's something that's the same in all of us mothers. And so we're just trying to say like we're in this all together. And so it's kind of, and then I just threw fit at the end because I wanted to be a fitness brand. So that's how we came up with the name. It was from a tank top that I had.
And you were telling me how you started your brand, and I would love for you to tell the listeners because a lot of times we think it's got to be something very complicated.
Oh, yeah. So it was I definitely so I have a lot of friends that have wanted to start some sort of online business that wants to offer something to have an additional stream of income from their family that's not like an MLM. And the biggest thing is to just do it and then figure it out as you go. So after the birth of my first daughter is when I started my business, Mama Stay Fit. I had transitioned from being in the military and was a stay-at-home mom and was just trying to figure out who I was now as this new mom. And I was trying to figure out a way to have a community for myself as well and a place that could be like my creative outlet. Babies are not known for being great conversationalists, and so I wanted some socialization for myself. I was primarily just kind of sitting at home and like waiting for my husband to come home, and so I wanted to create something for me, and that's where I came up with Mamaste Fit. And so we offer pre and postnatal fitness training, and then we offer it in person at our gym here in North Carolina, and then we also offer online stuff. As I was creating my business, I came up with the idea, and I was like, okay, what do I have to do? I have to find a place where clients can come and meet me. And so I started figuring out like what gyms would maybe be interested in having a prenatal or postpartum fitness class. And then figure out like how I was going to do it. Eventually, I found a gym that focused primarily on personal training. And so it was kind of like the best option for me because I could build my own clientele, I can do my own programming, I can be in there as much or as little as I want, and I didn't have to be like really restricted to like my time frame like if I was in like a bigger gym. And so I was able to build my own clientele and kind of figure out what I wanted to do. And the gym owner allowed us to bring our kids into the gym. So it was like a bunch of moms and like little babies and little toddlers. And it was really fun because for a lot of us, finding fitness in the postpartum can be really hard because childcare, like, I can't go to a gym and bring my 6 week old. Like the childcare doesn't accept them until they're like 4 or 6 months old. There's one gym that wouldn't take them until they were 18 months old, and I'm like, "Well, that's a really long time to just be at home." So, if you didn't have a home gym setup, you were really limited on what you can do fitness-wise, and so I was really thankful that he allowed us to be in the gym. So I found the place that I was gonna work out with. I started just kind of attending events and trying to get my name out there. He like really trusted me, so he was kind of spreading the word too with his facility. The other trainers in the gym were also referring like pregnant people to me as well, or postpartum new moms to me too. And so it started to kind of grow from there. And the program that I started with was garbage. Like if I look at it now and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed that that's what I first started with. And it wasn't a perfect product. And the products that I have now, like my programs now, are going to continue to develop. Like 10 years from now, the programs are going to look really different. Just based on new things that I learn, like better movement combinations that I figure out, like, oh, this is like a new aspect that we need to focus on, new research that comes out. And so when it comes to starting a business, it's okay for it to not be perfect. It's never gonna be perfect. You just gotta do it. Like what's that Shia LaBeouf? He's like, just do it, just do it. And so the products are gonna continue to develop and improve over time. Even with my online programs, when I first started them, they were just like a PDF. Like when I first started my in-person stuff, I would write all the workouts on a whiteboard. And then
I did
I
the
eventually got
same.
like these yeah, and then I got these laminated cards because it was a program. So I was like, okay, this is the card for today. This is the card for you and the card for you. And then eventually I got an app, and then I had like a training app that I was using. It's Team Builder. We still use it now. So it just kind of developed as like I got more clients. I had a little more like spending money for my business. I was able to invest in more things. At the beginning, I did a lot of this stuff by myself. I made my own website. I made my own flyers. I and there's lots of resources to do that stuff. Like Canva's a really great option for building graphics, like in a really easy way. Maybe they're not as wonderful as like a professionally designed one. I have a designer now that does stuff for me, but at the time when I was really low funding, Canva was like a really easy place to do design work. I was able to make my own website with a template on Squarespace. My website now is much better because I had somebody else make it for me, but at the time, that's what worked for me. That was what I was available to me. And again, it's not a perfect product. It's gonna kinda grow as you go. You just gotta do it. There was also a lot of really late nights for me and for my husband. We had a little baby. It's really hard to be in a productive groove with a small child that is very demanding because 'cause they're babies. They need you to do all of the things. And so I would get as much as I could. She would need something, I would stop, I'd get back to it, or I would just focus on her. We would go to the gym together. And then when my husband came home from work late at night, he would be primary on her and I would just focus. And so I was staying up to probably like 2 a.m. every night working on stuff. He was staying up late helping me with her. And so there's definitely a lot of grind between the two of us to get started and a little bit of sacrifice. I went back to school. So I was back to school full time as well because I was like, I need to learn more so that I could provide more for my clients. So I went back to school to get another bachelor's degree and a master's degree in exercise science. The space I was in, I needed to do an online school. I couldn't do like a brick and mortar because I didn't have the availability to do in-person classes. I personally think in-person classes would be really beneficial, but it just wasn't where I was at. So I could either not do the classes or I could do them online. And I was doing like labs and stuff in my kitchen, like dissecting a fetal pig on my dining room table. Like it was pretty wild. And so
Oh my
because I
gosh.
needed his support for that, Sunday was my day to do all my school. He would take our daughter, they would go do stuff, and I would just stay home and I would focus on school the whole day. And if there was evening during the week that I needed to do a little bit more, he would be primary on her so I could focus. So there's a lot of sacrifice for both of us, a lot of like hard work and like grind in the beginning. And now I've kind of reached a point where I can be more relaxed with my schedule. It's a little bit easier. Like I have more free time. I'm homeschooling my oldest at home. I'm primary on my kids. Like so it gets easier as the years grow, as your business grows. You have more opportunity to like, take more leisure time, like, invest in other things in your business. Like, we just finished a big rebrand for my business. I have 2 full-time employees now. I have a whole team, like, contracting team that does all my website, my editing, my podcast, my graphics, and so it has grown a lot since we started, but it was hard at the beginning, and my biggest advice to anybody that is wanting to start something for themselves is to remember it's not gonna be perfect. You just gotta put it out there and remember that people are very, like, kind and they're very forgiving, and they don't expect perfection either. Like, they're just gonna give you feedback and you just grow from that and improve.
You just have to decide what your mission is and why it's important to you, because dialing back to that why is what keeps you going during the hard times and the times like you weren't getting sleep or you're just doing what you can do while you can do it. Start small and scrappy. I remember somebody making fun of the bathrooms in my first little studio. And, you know, that's how you almost have to start like that. You can't always start in the Taj Mahal and then you just grow. And so we grew 3 times since the studio. But before that, I was leasing space in a gym that was more for kids. And so I could lease my space during the time they weren't using it. And so there's so many ways that you could start and build up your business. And it's good to have intentionality and a mission statement and decide what it is you really want to do. And I wanted to reach millions of women. And sometimes how you think you're going to do it isn't actually how it, ends up. And so you have to be willing to evolve into each little opportunity like you have. So I just know we're speaking to moms and women everywhere that it's not about being perfect, like what you said, but it is about being intentional. It's about saying what your intention is. It's about taking those leaps. Each one seems a little harder than the next. And I know a lot of women out there that still don't realize that they could exercise throughout their pregnancy and they're worried about it. They're worried about whether they're going to hurt the baby and what type of exercises they can do. What are the risks and the common fears of exercising throughout pregnancy?
I sympathize with that. My first pregnancy before I started Mamaste Fit, I was terrified of movement and of doing something wrong that was gonna hurt my baby. There's so many myths and misinformation out there where it's totally reasonable to be nervous and to be concerned, like, what if I do something that's harmful? The two biggest concerns or the two biggest like fears that folks have is, does exercise impact the length of my pregnancy? So is it going to cause a miscarriage or is it going to cause preterm labor? And then the second is it gonna negatively impact my baby's growth? Like, are my muscles gonna suck away all the nutrients so that my baby's gonna then starve? And the answer to both of those concerns is no. Like, there's a lot of research that supports that exercise does not increase your risk of miscarriage. It's something that unfortunately happens to 1 out of 4 of us, and it has nothing to do with whether or not you were exercising. Miscarriage is typically due to a chromosomal abnormality, which there was nothing you could have done to prevent it, and also nothing you could have done to cause it. It's just an unfortunate thing that happens. And when it comes to preterm labor, exercising during your pregnancy does not induce your labor or cause you to go into labor. We have a lot of hormones within our body that prevent that from happening. And so it's not going to cause you to go into preterm labor. The things that sometimes cause preterm labor could be like infections or complications. Maybe there's something going on with the cervix, but it typically has nothing to do with whether or not you were exercising. So if you are concerned about the length of your pregnancy being negatively impacted by exercising, you can feel assured that it will not. It is typically not an issue. Now, of course, if you have like a pre-existing complication or condition or your provider says like don't exercise, like that would be a contraindication. But in general, if you are a low risk pregnancy, there's nothing really special going on other than you're growing your own person. It's pretty safe to exercise during your pregnancy. And then the other concern is like, well, is it going to negatively impact my baby's growth? Are my muscles going to suck away all these nutrients and then my baby's not going to get all the stuff that it needs? The answer is no. It's not going to negatively impact your baby's development. If anything, exercise is incredibly beneficial for our babies. A number of things that you may not even know about is one, it can improve your baby's blood volume. So they have more blood, they have more oxygen, they have more circulatory flow, which is going to help them to be more resilient to stress, both during pregnancy, the planned stress of labor, and in the postpartum timeframe. So that's a really big thing. Babies are also going to have more nervous system development from exercise. So we have that stimulus of exercising, this like planned stress, this like predictable stress that's helping to improve baby's nervous system. So when they're born in the first year of life, they have improved cognitive function, they have improved language skills, they have improved motor skills. And so those are all like really big deals for our babies. I think all of us want to do things that help our babies be maybe a little bit ahead, a little bit more advanced. I joked around with my sister after my first was born. She was doing some movement stuff, and the nurse commented on how strong she was. And I told my sisters because she's really advanced. She's such an advanced baby. And then she was walking at 9 months. And I was like, see, I wasn't lying. She was super advanced. Whether or not that was directly related to my exercising, who knows? But it probably didn't hurt. It probably was really helpful for it. Exercising also helps to positively impact your placenta's development, which is a big player in regards to your baby's development and also the health of your pregnancy. And so, when we have a better functioning placenta, we tend to be healthier during our pregnancy, and our baby tends to grow better during our pregnancy as well. And so, exercise is incredibly beneficial. There's really not a lot of risk involved with it unless you have a pre existing complication or there's something going on with your medical history or current medical condition that exercise is a contraindication. But in general, it's relatively safe to do. Things that I would watch out for is to be mindful of the environment that you're exercising in. So if it's like super hot and humid, like everyone else is like passing out because it's so hot, maybe not a time to like don't go do jumping jacks in a sauna. That's not good. Normal people don't do that. You shouldn't do that during pregnancy. Some folks like you may or may not want to do like a hot yoga class depending on like what you've been doing. I would say, like, probably, like, maybe not. But in general, be cognizant of your environment, making sure that you're in a place where you can maintain your comfort during it, drinking cold water, like, staying hydrated during your workouts. And in regards to exercises to select, ones that don't have a big fall risk can be a great option, and that really leaves a lot out there. Like, so box jumps, I would say, like, there's a little bit more of a fall risk with those, maybe not a great option. Like a toes to bar where if you let go, you can really hurt yourself, like maybe not a great option during pregnancy. Things that have a higher impact, like are not dangerous, but they could like maybe cause more injury or a little bit more like trauma to your body. So like
Well, it can
running
be
or
harder
jumping
on your
type things.
internal organs if as your baby starts to gain weight
Hmm.
and you're doing all that
Just like it's like going for a
running.
run without a sports bra on, like not a good time. not a good time. There's a little bit more bounce that's happening during pregnancy, but there's really no inherently dangerous exercises that you can do, and so that really kind of
What
opens
about
you up
laying on
to.
your back? I was always told that um that could put a risk because it could shut off the vena cava to the baby.
So during the first and second trimester, it's usually not an issue at all. Baby's not big enough really to
It's when it
comply
get towards the
compression there.
last.
If you are in your third trimester, this is where we need to be more mindful of it. And so if you're just exercising short periods of time, really not a big deal. But if you're experiencing any symptoms like dizziness, you're seeing black, like you're feeling really lightheaded or nauseous, those would all be signs that laying flat on your back is not for you. And so instead of doing like a flat bench press, maybe we do an incline press or we do a standing chest press. So there's different modifications that we can take to still achieve the same goal of the movement, but kind of changing the setup for it. And so the majority of our in-person clients, they can lay flat on their back all throughout their pregnancy for bursts of exercise. I've had like a really small handful that it was just like not good for them. And so monitoring your symptoms and kind of really tuning into how you feel within your body is like a really good clue of this exercise is not for me right now, or I need to kind of modify from this. And so instead of like giving someone like a full list of like do this, don't do that, just really tune in to you. Like, okay, I feel really uncomfortable running right now. Like my belly hurts. Okay, well, maybe don't run. Maybe we shift to a low impact. Like maybe we like do stationary bike or we do elliptical or we do swimming. Instead, if we are laying flat on our back and we're feeling really dizzy or we're doing a movement that's causing us to feel really nauseous or uncomfortable, that's a sign from our body that it's not for us anymore. And we just need to choose something else. We need to find a different movement, which I know can be really hard for those of us that maybe tie our identity to certain types of exercise. So if running is something that you associate with your identity, or Olympic weightlifting or CrossFit or things you have tied to your identity, letting go of them can be much more challenging, and being able to tune into what your body is telling you can be much harder to do. And I really encourage you, if your body is saying no, thank you, to honor that and to know that it doesn't go away forever. Like, there's still a lot of stuff that we can do to achieve the same sensation, the same mission, the same goal by changing the shape, by making it look a little bit different, but still achieving the same thing that we're seeking. And it's just going to look a little bit different for a short period of time. And then you can get back to it in the postpartum. But it's much harder, I find, for folks that have tied certain types of exercise to who they are as a person. So I sympathize with that, but I really encourage folks to really tune in so that you can figure out what exercises are good for you, which ones are maybe not as optimal.
When I started teaching, that's how I got initiated. I literally they told me, "Yes, the job is yours," and I was pregnant at the time, so I actually started instructing as the pregnant aerobics instructor, and I taught all the way through until the day I just couldn't. I was like, I can't do anymore," and that was the day I gave birth. And so I was, one of the first Mohicans, so to speak, since I'm almost 63, to kind of really start doing this in my classes and teaching it. So I love all that you said about listening to your body, but again, you still also have to think about the fact that you may not feel everything the baby's feeling. And so when they said not to do that on your back, I took like this whole program. And it was because when you're doing abs and crunches and things like that, you can shut off some blood flow going to the baby. So, but there's other ways that you could do abs, which would be more like from the side or like a hanging ab, or there's so many ways to do abs without any type of risk. But for the most part, it is on what you perceive, your exertion, your heart rate, and not wanting to get too overheated and warm, like what you said, like not doing, like, don't do jumping jacks in the sauna, don't do a hot like boot camp. Use your common sense, and there's no reason why, unless the doctor has contraindicated it for you, that you can't exercise during pregnancy. You feel so much better all the way through.
Absolutely. I definitely find so we have clients that'll start brand new, like they never really exercised before and they'll start with us. I know that's like another like common misconception is just do whatever you did before pregnancy, just a little bit less. But what if you're doing nothing? Like how do you do less than that? So you can absolutely start exercise programs during pregnancy and I would like highly recommend it as well. I would say if you're brand new to exercise, knowing how beneficial it is for you to find a professional to work with, to either work with a personal trainer to find like a group fitness class that's dedicated to pregnancy can be really helpful, or following like on demand videos. So, videos that are like the workout video that you follow, there's tons on YouTube. We have an on demand program. We have a YouTube channel as well where there's workouts that you can follow with as well. I find that that can be really helpful if you're not familiar with exercising, or even if your body feels different if you feel unfamiliar with your body during pregnancy. But you can absolutely start workouts during pregnancy as well. And we have a lot of clients that'll start brand new in our gym who by the end of their pregnancy, they're like, "I feel really good. Like, I really thought I was gonna be so much more uncomfortable." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, strength training is, like, really helpful with keeping you comfortable during your pregnancy." There's a common belief that pregnancy, you're just supposed to be in pain, it's uncomfortable, like, your pelvis hurts, your back hurts, everything hurts. But when we can add in exercise, especially strength training during pregnancy, it can help to really alleviate a lot of that discomfort because pain is not a requirement. Like, you do not have to be in pain just because you're pregnant. During pregnancy, we have a lot of extra laxity that's within the pelvic joints and joints within our bodies. There's extra movement that's happening, and if we don't have the muscular coordination to help control that movement, it can cause pain. So if we have too much movement happening within the pelvis and the low back and other joints, it can cause discomfort. And so this is where adding in that strength training can really help to improve your comfort during pregnancy. In addition, we have more load on the front side of our body. Our belly is growing, our boobs are growing. We just got more going on the front side. And so we need a strong backside of the body, back, glute, hamstrings to help kind of pull us back to center to keep us upright for our comfort. And strength training is going to be, again, something super beneficial. And so if you didn't work out before pregnancy, you can absolutely start. If you've been working out prenatal or pre pregnancy, you can definitely continue, but know that there's probably going to be modifications that you have to do to your normal exercise routine during pregnancy, but you can still have challenging workouts. You can still like train your abs and your core and all of these things, it's just gonna look a little bit different.
What's the truth about diastasis recti and how can fitness help prevent or manage that?
So diastasis is the separation of the abdominal muscles. So we have our two six-pack abs. There's this connective tissue that runs in between them. So they're two separate muscle bellies. And as baby grows, as our uterus grows, the abdominal wall is going to thin and stretch. And we're going to have more of a separation between those two six-pack ab muscles. And so this is a normal adaptation that has to happen. If you carry your baby to term, you will have some degree of diastasis. Now, how bad it is will kind of vary depending on your personal genetics, like your tissue integrity, and also your posture, your breathing patterns, and your general like movement pattern during pregnancy. So, the one of the things that contributes towards a worsening of a diastasis is if you have something called abdominal coning all the time. And so what abdominal coning is essentially there's 2 types. You can either have a hard cone, which is from exertion, so you're exercising, like you're doing crunches and you see the center kind of push out a little bit more, or if you're hanging from a bar, you can sometimes see it, or, I also find it with, like, pressing weight overhead. You can see kinda like the center push out, and so it kind of forms this, like, little pyramid with your belly. If listeners are not familiar, just look up abdominal coning, like, on Google, and you'll see, like, this little tent picture. So with abdominal coning with exertion, this is like a hard cone, so it's going to be firm to touch. This is from pressure inside your abdominal cavity, pushing out to the point of least resistance, and it's stretching that tissue out a little bit more. And so if you think about like a hair tie, if I'm stretching and stretching to put it in my hair, it's going to lose this elasticity. It's going to be
Yeah.
a little bit weakened. It's going to be more stretchy. And that's what's going to be happening to your abdominal wall if you are always coning with like every repetition that you work out. You're coning, coning, coning. We're damaging the tissue a little bit more. So if you're doing a lot of exercises that cause coning, you're potentially going to have a worse diastasis after birth, and it's going to be a little bit harder to heal from. Some of the worst diastasis that I've seen have been from really active people during pregnancy who were doing a lot of movements that really emphasized this abdominal coning for essentially 9 months, which is a long time to be doing this all the time. Now, if it happens every once in a while, like you did one rep and it coned, not a big deal. If you're resting, you're in a restorative position and you see abdominal coning, that's just the way that your belly's relaxing. It's usually not an issue. There's no pressure pushing it out. So if you're sitting on a couch, if your like belly is towards the floor and you're just like in a tabletop position, that's normal. That's not a big deal at all. It's with exertion. Common movements that I see dice or the see more of the coning are going to be like flexion, abdominal flexion, so like sit-ups and crunches, like boat pose, bicycles, anything that's like a lot of like crunching tends to cause more abdominal coning. So ideally, we're just kind of avoiding those during pregnancy. They're not mandatory for core strength anyways. Anything where you're kind of like hanging from a bar, so like pull-ups tend to cause more coning. Any sort of like knee to chest, like hanging core exercises can also cause some abdominal coning. So usually, like second trimester, we step away from the pull-up bar just to avoid that. And we just transition to like lat pull downs or other back strengthening exercises. I also see it a lot with overhead pressing motions. The reason for that is during pregnancy, we tend to favor a little bit more of an extended position. And because of that, it can limit shoulder mobility or how well we can press weight overhead. And so when we press weight overhead and we have limited mobility, we tend to arch even more. And when we arch, we're stretching the abdominal wall, we're stretching that tissue even more. And so pressure is going to be pushing out into that tissue. And so we typically see more coning. So what we can do to help kind of minimize abdominal coning during pregnancy is one, just I would just omit abdominal flexion focused exercises or hanging exercises because they're just going to be really hard to kind of overcome the coning with them. And instead, we can focus on exercises that still strengthen the core that aren't those ones. So we can do rotational exercises. We can do isometric exercises. So like Pallof presses, anti-rotation. We can do like farmer's carries, like one-sided farmer's carries. So there's so many core exercises. Like just squats and deadlifts are core exercises. So we can also kind of expand our mind to what the core does and think about what's the goal of our core is to maintain our position. And I do that with literally every movement that I do. So every movement can become a core exercise. When it comes to the overhead pressing motions, the biggest issue is the extension, so the arching and the flaring of the rib cage. So if we think about, okay, well, if my shoulder mobility is the issue, let me change the angle of press. So instead of pressing directly overhead, maybe it's an incline press, maybe it's a banded chest press. We're gonna change it to like a 45-degree angle. So we still got shoulder strengthening, but it's in a way that's more accessible to us. Or we can add in some more core engagement to help kind of keep that rib cage down. And I like to do it with like a pull down with a band, and then I press the weight overhead. And that's like a really helpful way to keep your rib cage position to prevent the abdominal coning. Um, Again, ideally, during pregnancy, we minimize it as much as we can so that we don't have as much to heal from in the postpartum. I've given birth 4 times now. I've carried 4 pregnancies to term. I've had diastasis for all of them, and it heals pretty much spontaneously, like within like a few days after I give birth, because I'm really mindful of the way that I move. And I have a lot of clients that also don't have much diastasis after they give birth because they were very mindful with their movement during pregnancy. And so it's something that is normal that we're all going to have, but it doesn't have to be severe. And the way that we can minimize the severity is to be mindful of our movement, but not be fearful. Just be mindful of how you are moving. And typically, when you feel coning, it's going to be like a straining across your belly. It's going to feel like a lot of stretching or like pulling sensation. So, if you're feeling that, we want to try to minimize it as much as possible.
Now, with exercise, can we help prevent? How far does it go into prevention of C-sections or being induced into labor?
So, exercise has been shown to decrease your risk of cesarean birth. It's also been shown to help to like shorten your labor timeframe, which I think is really helpful. The main reasons why I think exercise can help with those is one, if you are moving your body, you have better mobility. You probably have a more even tone within your pelvic floor, and so it's going to be easier for a baby to navigate through your pelvis. When we have a stronger abdominal wall, it helps to bring your baby into your pelvis as well, so they can drop down. We have a weaker abdominal wall; they kind of like hang forward, and they have have a harder time entering into the pelvis. Our abdominal wall also plays a big role in helping with pushing, like it can aid in the uterus with like changing your baby's position. So if we're stronger there, it can one help baby's position. If we're moving more throughout our pregnancy, it's helping to create space within our pelvis, release tension within our pelvic floor. And when we have the conditioning, we're able to maintain upright positions and move for longer to really aid with our baby's rotation. I typically find that my clients who don't exercise during their pregnancies, when labor comes, they're usually like resting and laying down much faster than my clients who have been exercising, and their labors just take longer. And we tend to have a little bit more complications and issues with baby's positioning. So it can absolutely decrease your risk of C-section, mainly because you can move longer. Babies are usually in better positions. You probably have more mobility as well. Now, and it can reduce your risk of needing an induction because some of inductions are related to medical complications, which if you are exercising during your pregnancy, a lot of those complications really decrease. So it's up to like almost 30 to 40% of a reduction in preeclampsia, hypertension, gestational diabetes, just from exercising throughout your pregnancy, which is huge. Those are really big deals. Now, there is some belief that if you exercise or you're doing CrossFit or if you're weightlifting, it's gonna make your pelvic floor too tight. And the concern with this is if you're doing all that weightlifting, your pelvic floor is gonna be really tight. And there is maybe some truth to that if you're doing all of your movement patterns in one plane of movement. So if all of your movements are squats, deadlifts, cleans, snatches, and it's all in the sagittal plane, you're potentially going to have a tighter back half of your pelvic floor. You're probably going to favor a lot of extension in your spine and a lot of external rotation in your hips, which opens certain parts of your pelvis, but it may kind of decrease mobility in other parts. So if you are an athlete and you are lifting a lot, you want to make sure, like, yes, we include all the sagittal plane extension exercises, but we also include lateral movement in the frontal plane and also rotational movement in the transverse plane. So as long as we have a well-rounded program, you're gonna be fine. It's when you only focus on the sagittal plane that you're probably gonna have uneven tension within your pelvic floor. So if you look in the mirror and you're just like super extended and you have a really hard time rounding in your back, that would be a sign to me that we need to do a little bit more in other directions. So our prenatal programming, we incorporate all of the different directions. I think it's less common in standard lifting programs to have it like in all the different directions. I think it's more a little bit more common now. So if you're like, well, I want to make sure I want to continue to lift during my pregnancy, but I don't know what to do, like our programs are a really great option for that.
How do you approach fitness differently for high risk pregnancies?
So it depends on what kind of recommendations they have for their providers. If they have a complication where exercise is not beneficial, then like I don't recommend doing our programming. Now, if you're high risk, like you developed a complication towards the end of your pregnancy, it kind of depends on the severity of it. So if you're so severe that you should be induced, you don't need to be at the gym. If it's like it's starting to develop, but you're still like you're not being induced, like at that point, it would really depend. If somebody has twins, for example, like they may be considered high risk. The things that we would do is like we're probably going to modify earlier for you because you're going to need those modifications a little bit earlier. And then once we hit third trimester, we're not going to go beyond deep hip flexion. So we're not going to go past parallel. So most of our squats are probably going to be like box squats or like higher squats, just because if we put too much pressure on the cervix, when you maybe have a little bit different of a hormone balance, it potentially could cause you to start to dilate a little bit earlier than you should. And typically, if you have a multiple pregnancy or you have multiples in your pregnancy, your risk of going earlier is a little bit higher. So we're a little bit more mindful of that in the third trimester. If you have a complication like a placenta issue or there's something going on with your cervix, it would also be really similar to one, we're not going to do deep hip flexion type motions because we don't want to put more pressure on that cervix to cause it to dilate. So we're primarily going to do like higher movements or primarily focus on like body weight type or upper body exercises. And again, if you have if you have blood pressure issues, we're not going to invert, we're not going to go upside down because we don't want you to be uncomfortable. And then a lot of it is just modifying based on symptoms as well. So it would depend if the provider said no exercise, we would not really feel comfortable with them working out with us just because like, there are benefits to exercising, but if the risks of your complication outweigh the benefits, then it would not be beneficial for you to do. But if you can exercise and you're trying to figure out, well, what can I do? Our main things that we're usually still seeing folks work out with us that are high risk is if they have twins or triplets. We're modifying earlier with movements. We're trying to keep you comfortable and then just monitoring symptoms.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that everything you said, it's really just going to be a case per case basis when you're high risk. How do you think exercise helps boost confidence and body trust during pregnancy?
So when we're exercising, if we're taking the opportunity to really tune in to what our body is communicating to us, it's going to allow us to feel just more confident with things and feel more in tune with what is happening. And so if I'm lifting, for example, and I'm like, this squat doesn't feel great for me, I'm gonna honor that, and I'm gonna do a box squat instead. I'm gonna add more support to the movement, or instead of doing the barbell, I'm gonna do dumbbells, or maybe I'm gonna do like a body weight today instead. So being open to kind of accepting that whatever it is that I need each day, like letting go of my ego and just kind of surrendering to their experience, I find to be like really helpful during pregnancy because it takes a lot of the pressure off of you. Where you're like, oh, if I don't exercise 4 days a week, then I'm like my whole pregnancy is ruined. um, and then that's also gonna really serve you during can you hear my dogs barking at the doorbell?
No, I cannot.
Okay, good.
Mine are
Um,
outside.
so so exercising during your pregnancy can also help you prepare for labor, especially if you are letting go of the ego and surrendering. Like, we should absolutely have a plan going into labor, like 100%. But we need to kinda, like, let go of, like, expectations. Like, yes, I've set myself up, I've set the conditions for the experience that I want, but I'm gonna surrender to whatever happens. And it could be as simple as my contractions are harder than I expected, or my labor's longer than I was planning. It doesn't mean, like, you can't have, like, the birth that you were wanting. But when we can let go of the ego and expectations and surrender, it's gonna make our labor much more peaceful and, I mean, as peaceful as it can be, and a little bit, like, mentally easier. When we're moving our bodies during pregnancy as well, we're gonna feel better in our bodies. We're not gonna be in pain. Our quality of life is gonna be improved. And that is also gonna be really helpful for your mental health too. And that carries into the postpartum. So for our clients that do our prenatal programs that don't have the birth that they were expecting, like, the expectation would be like, well, if I do a Mamaste program, I'm gonna have the unmedicated vaginal birth that I want, but I had a C-section. What they are finding that even if they didn't have the birth path that they were planning for, they were hoping for, they feel really good postpartum, or as good as you can after having a baby. Postpartum is rough regardless of what you did during pregnancy, but they're
Yeah.
like, "I'm able to get up sooner. I feel stronger in my body. I feel like I can meet these demands and heal from my birth better than if I had no conditioning, if I was out of shape going into my labor and into my postpartum." And I think that's something that sometimes we forget about with prenatal fitness. It's not just pregnancy and birth, it's also kind of setting this foundation for the postpartum as well. And when we feel better in our bodies and we don't have discomfort, we're not peeing ourselves, like our back doesn't hurt. It's just so much easier to approach it like happy and feel good about it.
Well, stronger and more empowered, that's for sure. And I could say that the pregnancy working out, what I felt much better, and people forgot that I was pregnant because I wasn't, that it wasn't the stereotype, I guess. And so I think being more active, also you bounce back quicker when sometimes it takes a while to get back to you. And I think it's just everything just seems to come back a little quicker if you keep moving throughout pregnancy. And I like all of the tips and all the things that you have shared with us today. And I'm sure a lot of people's confusion was cleared up. This was so informative. How are they going to find more of this if they want to work out with you online and they want to get your book? Tell us how to get it.
So we're on social media and on YouTube at Mamaste Fit on both those platforms. That's where we're going to share a lot of our free content. We post daily reels, weekly YouTube videos where we go much more in depth with a lot of these topics. We also have our online pre and postnatal fitness programs on our website at mamastefit.com. We also offer a childbirth education course that's a really deep dive into mechanics and anatomy so that you can feel confident in what is happening within your body and you can feel confident in what movements to do during labor. And then my book Training for Two, you can grab wherever you buy books, typically online though. It's all about how you can use prenatal fitness to stay strong during your pregnancy, pain free, help you prepare for birth. There's tons of exercises in there. If you've got like a different discomfort, there's a whole chapter on how to overcome it. Like we have a whole chapter on like pelvic pain and overcoming pelvic pain. There's also QR codes to videos within the book as well. So if you're like, I don't really know what this movement is, you can watch the YouTube video where I break it down for you. So there's tons of resources to help you feel confident in moving your body during pregnancy, during labor, and then in the postpartum.
Perfect, perfect. And what advice do you give to creators out there that are wanting to start some sort of a program?
So if you are wanting to start your own fitness program or you're wanting to create your own type of thing, just remember it's not going to be perfect. And there is something unique about your offering that is going to help you stand out from other people. So try not to copy what like somebody else is doing. Like find your own unique way about sharing about it. And there is something for you that is going to really stand out about other people and just really emphasize that. And yeah, it's not going to be perfect. You're gonna figure out as you go. Like you said, you're gonna adapt based on what you realize that people are needing, but really hold on to your mission and know that it's tough in the beginning, but it does get easier as you go.
I love what you said about not copying and being original and just believing in your own ideas. And you're going to do something that I do, you're going to do it 100% differently. If it could still be exercise, but you're going to have your own unique flavor. And that's what makes everything, uh, what I might present, somebody will want and maybe somebody doesn't want, and maybe they're going to like the way you present that and they click with you better. So that's why I think that not one size fits all, and so it's good to have
Absolutely.
that variety in the marketplace. Well, I thank you so much, Gina, for coming on. It's been amazing. I wish I would have had all this information when I was having babies. So I'm excited to deliver it to the audience for all those new mothers out there. Thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks everybody for listening to this episode of the Sisterhood of Sweat. We will put this in the show notes so you can be sure to connect with Gina's Mama Stay. Bye, everyone. Keep on keeping on.